And now we are being recorded. To start off, is there anybody in here that has not accessed Blackboard yet? Show of hands. You haven't yet? Okay, do you have your passwords and stuff like that, your student ID number? And okay. To access Blackboard, you'll just go to WITC's main webpage, witc.edu. And up across the top here, we have our quick links, and Blackboard is the middle one. Your username is just your student ID number. Your password is the first two letters of your first name. So my name is Todd, so that'd be just T-O. And then the first two letters of your last name. My name's Hoff, so that's H-O. And then the last four digits of your social security number. There have been some glitches with passwords. I don't know if it happened this year. I know last year, the passwords are supposed to be all lowercase letters. Last year, however, there was a glitch, and these two letters, the first letter of each name was capital. So if lowercase letters don't work, you can try capital letters there. So anyway, that's your password, should get you into Blackboard. Once you're in there, your page should look something like this, and you should have a list of classes on the right side. For you guys, I don't know if any of your CNC classes are out there or not. I think a couple of them are at least. So you'll have a few of them listed here. Of course, this one's Math 355. Just so you guys know, you are not required to use Blackboard for this course at all. It's not a requirement, but there are helpful things out there. When you go in, what you'll see is just this little announcement. All that's doing is telling you where stuff is. Most of the useful stuff is in course information here, and we'll go over that in a second. If you click course tools, there is a lot of junk here. The real only useful stuff is if you scroll all the way down, you can send email. You can actually send email to anybody in the class or to me using that function. So if you need to contact a classmate and you don't know their email, that's one way to find it. Okay, so under course information, you'll see my contact information. You guys can all call me Todd. We're all adults, so we don't need to worry about titles. My email is todd.hoff@witc.edu. That is the easiest way to get a hold of me. I check my email at least a couple times a day, so I'll get your message pretty quickly. I don't always respond right away because a lot of times I'm checking email in between classes or whatever, and I don't have a lot of time to respond, but I will at least get the message so I know what's going on. If you can't get to email, you can call the WITC's number, and then my extension is 5361. You can leave a voicemail. Don't expect me to answer the phone because I'm never in my office. If you've ever seen the cubes upstairs, you'd understand why. I'd go in there maybe 2 or 3 times a week to make sure no mail or anything's piling up on my desk, and that's about it. But I do have it set up now that if you leave a voicemail, it'll send a message to my email so I know what's there and I can go check it. The syllabus we'll go through in a second. Also in there is my schedule. That shows you when I'm in class. You can see here, you guys are my first class of the day. I have a class comes in right after you, but then after that I have free time every day. So if you guys have any questions, I do have 10 minutes in between classes, so I can try to answer them right after class or before class. I will typically be here by 7:15 in the morning before class if you want to come in for questions. Otherwise, any of the time where it says office or assigned time, I should be in this room. This would be the first place to come looking for me. Where it says office/activity, again, I should be available for you, but that's where my meetings get scheduled. So I'd say maybe 3 or 4 times a month I'll have meetings to be at. So if you come looking for me during those times, there's a chance I won't be around. I've got 2 classes on Friday, but yeah, not a heavy load, which is actually a change because most semesters I've been here from 7:30 in the morning till 3:30 or 4:30 at night on Fridays. Being done at 12:30 on Fridays is a new luxury for me. Syllabus, let's take a look at that. Okay, so the syllabus for this class is pretty basic. That's my contact information again. You guys are here, so you know when and where to be in class, so we don't really need to go over that. Morning, I'm guessing you're Jacob? Hey, cool. You're again officially in my first class to have everybody show up. Course description. This is actually the first semester of a 2-semester course sequence. In this class, we're going to look at basic arithmetic and algebra, a little bit of basic geometry as far as areas and volumes and surface areas and stuff. And we will look at solving equations in algebra and some systems of equations at the very end of the semester. Next semester would be the second portion of the class, which is a different course number. That's when we're going to hit the trig and all that stuff, finding missing surfaces. For you guys, now that you guys are a 1-year program, you used to be a 2-year program. It gets a little awkward because you need some of the trig in the shop by the end of this first semester, but we don't cover it till about 6 weeks into second semester. If you hit stuff in the shop that it's math related and you have questions on, feel free to bring it to me and I can try to do kind of a quick overview of it for you to help you out if you're having problems with it. Textbook, you guys all have, I hope. Looks like everybody has it. Is there anybody that doesn't have a textbook yet? Okay. If you look around, you can see the textbooks next to you there. There should be 2 books, the large book, and then you got the small book, which is the practical problems for industrial technicians. Most of the homework is going to come out of the small book. I'd say about 1/4 of your homework is going to come out of the large book for this class, but second semester, the large book's going to get used a lot more. So make sure you have both of them. I realize they're kind of spendy. Like I said, it's like $340, but you do get to use it for 2 semesters. So there won't be, you won't need any more books next semester. Other supplies, not necessarily required, but extremely highly recommended that you have some sort of scientific calculator. The perfect one, Rob, can you hold yours up? The Texas Instruments TI-30 is really the perfect one to have for this class. There are other models that work just fine. The reason I recommend that one is it's only like $12 or $13, and it's one of the easier ones to use. Casio and Sharp have versions that work as well. They're just a little bit clumsier to use sometimes. If you have a scientific calculator, chances are it'll get you through the course. If you're not sure, come and talk to me. I'd be happy to take a look and let you know if it'll work. I get asked about cell phones as calculators all the time. I won't stop you from using your cell phone as a calculator, but I will tell you this, for the most part, my experience is your cell phone calculator apps are a lot slower and clumsier to use when we get into the more in-depth stuff. And in the last year, I've seen a couple of apps that do fractions, but most of your cell phone calculator apps do not do fractions well, where the little $12 or $13 calculator does. Walmart should have them, Shopko, Office Max. Walmart's usually the cheapest place. Other places are $1 or $2 more for it. In the toolkit? That should work, yes. Okay, I didn't realize they actually put one in your standard toolkit now. Really? Okay. The Casio is a little bit cheaper, so it's a little clumsier to use. Okay. Don't like Walmart. I don't blame you. It can be depressing some days, that's for sure. Well, that's my problems. I like to go in there at like 10 o'clock at night when it's not crowded. Well, yeah, there's one register open and like 8 people waiting. They a lot of times don't have those open late at night now. Okay, course competencies. Right here is listed the 11 topics for this course. Operations with fractions, decimals, and whole numbers. And I throw in there integers, the negative numbers. And that's actually the part that most people struggle with the most is the negative numbers. We'll circle around to those a couple of times throughout the semester. Order of operations is some of your basic pre-algebra and algebra stuff. We do a lot with ratio and proportion, and we do even more to start out next semester. That's probably the most important topic in any sort of technical math or applied math is ratio and proportion. And then, of course, percentages kind of fall in there as well. And as you expect, measurement is a big deal. We do a lot with measuring devices and interpreting scales, reading micrometers and calipers for you guys, and then all the measurement conversions and the area and volume conversions and all that stuff. Algebraic principles and formulas, that's where we do the area, the volume, surface area, and stuff like that. And then working with formulas and equations, solving equations, rearranging formulas, systems of equations, and all that. Now, if any of you are looking at that list of topics and thinking to yourself, this is really easy, I already know this, come and talk to me. There is a test out procedure for this class where you can, it costs, I believe it still costs $60 to attempt the test out. You go and take the test out, and if you pass, which would be 80% or better, you get credit for the class and you would get your tuition back. So I think tuition for this class was 3 credits, like 460 some bucks or 470 bucks. If you don't pass, you lose your 60 bucks and you're just stuck back in here. Historically, only about 35 to 40% of the people that take that test pass it. It's not that the test is hard. It's just a lot of people look at those topics and think, yep, I've had all that before, but it's been, if you're just out of high school, it's been a few months or more since you've had it, and it fades. I mean, the only people I've ever had pass the test are the ones that study for it. Never really had anybody walk in and say, yep, I can do it, and go take the test and nail it. So make sure you talk to me, and I've got some old versions we can look at and give you an idea of what the questions are like so you know what to expect. No. That test out, in fact, it's 2 parts. One part where you're not allowed to use the calculator. That's like your fractions and decimals and stuff like that. Another part where you can use it, which would be measurement conversions and formulas and algebra and stuff like that. Grading. Grading in this class consists of 2 parts. 80% of your grade is from tests and quizzes. There will be, I believe, 4 unit tests in this class. Then there will be unannounced, the tests, I'll usually give you a day or 2 notice that they're coming up. Otherwise, quizzes are unannounced. Quizzes will happen anywhere between 2 and 4 or 5 hours of class. So you guys will have a quiz at least once a week, most likely a little bit more often than that. You will have your first quiz before this first week is up. I'll warn you that's coming. The quizzes are anywhere from 8 to 20 points. The tests are 100 points each. On all of them, if you get something wrong, I give you a chance to go back and redo them and get back part of your points. So that's 80% of your grade. The other 20% of your grade is homework and class participation. I will tell you this, I will almost never collect your homework in here. All the answers to the problems you're assigned are in the back of the book, so you can check your answers yourself. There's 2 reasons I don't collect the homework. One is I believe homework is for learning, especially at the beginning of the semester. Many of you have seen this stuff before and you already know it. If you do the first couple problems and they seem real easy, I encourage you to skip ahead a few and try some more difficult ones. I don't want you going home and doing a bunch of busy work on stuff that you already know. The second thing is I have, this semester, I think I have 108 or 109 students going through my classroom. I just don't have time. There's no way I could possibly grade your homework and get it back to you. So that means that other 20% turns into class participation, which means show up for class and don't upset the teacher. As you can see, I'm really tough to get along with, so that part's really hard to deal with. Yeah. Yes, on quizzes and tests, you can use your notes. All your quizzes and tests in here are open book and open notes. The rest of the grade scale is the standard WITC grade scale. You've probably seen that a few times already as far as where your letter grade falls. If you have to drop the course or if you're having any problems for any reason, come talk to me. There are deadlines for dropping. If you're going to do the test out, by the way, you have to have it done by the end of this first week. so that you can get a refund on tuition. So if you have any problems, for any reason, come and talk to me so we can make sure we're getting all the procedures and timelines met. Academic integrity, I've been told we have to talk about that this year. Basically, don't cheat. What basically consists, when we do your tests, I will tell you if it's okay to work with other people on stuff. Homework, you can work with whoever you want to. You can work with the person sitting next to you. We'll usually have 10 or 15 minutes at the end of class to work on homework. So you can work with your classmates on that if you want to, especially since it's not collected. Do what you need to figure it out. Quizzes, I do expect you, and most of those will be done in class. I do expect you to work on those by yourself. Occasionally I may say, hey, you can work in groups on this part of the quiz or something like that. And the same with tests. Some of the quizzes and tests I will let you take home just because we don't have the class time to sit here for an hour and a half or 2 hours working on some of the tests. So I will let you take some of those home, and I will let you know if there are parts that it's okay to work with other people on, but otherwise I do expect you to work on those alone. Accommodations, if you have any needs, whether it's a diagnosed disability or even if you've just struggled with math or distractions during tests really bug you or whatever it is, come and talk to me. We can almost always find some way to figure out how to help you get through the class. I have another classroom next door that we can use if you need a quieter room for taking tests and things like that. So we'll figure something out if there's anything you need to get you through the course. The podcasts and videos, just the same warning I mentioned earlier. You are recorded. It will be posted publicly. These recordings are posted publicly on the internet. So make sure you're aware of that and don't say anything that you don't want the world to know about. And then here's the 3 main units: operations with real numbers, fractions, decimals, and so on. Measurements in area and volume are the 2nd unit. Algebra is the 3rd unit, and then systems of equations actually break out into a 4th unit for a 4th. It's part of the 3rd unit, but we break it out to a 4th test. It's not quite so long of a test for that. Any questions on policies and procedures? Okay. So, as you saw by those topics listed in the course, the concepts we're going to talk about in here are, we start out relatively basic. We start out with what I would say is probably about an 8th grade level math, but we work our way up through it very quickly. And the difficulty is really in the applications. Now, with that said, I know that all of you have seen many of these topics before, especially the ones at the beginning of the course. And most of you have seen, a good share of you have probably seen all the topics we're going to cover at some point or another. So what that means to me is either you saw it and you understood it and you don't need me to go over it again, or you saw it and you didn't understand it and going over it the same way isn't going to help. So I try to cover things in a little bit different way than you may have seen before. The biggest thing I try to do is, rather than just telling you how, I try to explain why things are done a certain way. I find that many people that are good at math know how to do math, but they don't necessarily know why they're doing it that way. And for you guys going into the real world and using this stuff in a work environment, being able to solve problems, it's a lot easier if you know why you're doing things that way. So if you run into a unique problem, you can adjust it. If you know that, well, we added these 2 numbers because of this, well, you get into a new situation, you can see, okay, the situation is different, so instead of adding, I have to do something else. You can adjust those processes and use it to solve problems. So as an example of that difference in how I explain things, I'm going to start out with the most basic concept in math, but also probably one of the most misunderstood. And that's the idea of a number. A number is the structure of a number is the key to how everything works in math. If I put a 4 up here, with a show of hands, how many of you would tell me that's a number? Most people would, right? Some of you know that there's There's something coming here, so you didn't raise your hand. 4 is an amount. It's a numeral. It's telling us how much of something we have. To be a number, it must tell us how much, but it also must tell us of what. Like 4 cows. That's a number because it tells us how much we have, the 4, which I'm going to refer to as the count, and then what it is we have 4 of, in this case, the cows, which I'm going to call the name. So every number has 2 parts, a count and a name. Now, some of you might be thinking that this is my excuse for making you label everything. That's not the case here. I'm not one that gets really strict on grading. If you don't put inches at the end of the number or whatever, I'm not going to tear your test apart and take off all sorts of points for it. But working with those labels is actually the key to understanding our basic math processes. So with that in mind, let's take a look at our 2 most basic math operations. Addition and multiplication. Some of you might be wondering, where did subtraction go and maybe even where did division go? Well, addition and subtraction are really the same operation. All of our operations in math come in pairs. Addition and subtraction are what we call inverses. They are really the same operation. One is going forward and the other is going in reverse. The same is true of multiplication and division. They are, again, called inverses. They're really the same operation. Multiplication is going forward, division is going in reverse. So if we look at numbers, let's take 4 inches plus 7 inches. What do we get? 11 inches. If only the first test could be that easy. Let's take a look at what happened with our count and our name. Well, we have our counts of 4 and 7. And those were combined to make 11. We are adding here, so we combine the counts with addition. So when we add numbers, we combine the counts. The same would be true of subtracting, only we combine them with subtraction. Let's look at the names here. We had inches, and we ended up with inches. When we add or subtract numbers, we keep the same name. Now you might be looking at that thinking that's not really groundbreaking material. Probably not quite worth your $450 for the class yet. Let's take a look at how it's different with multiplication. If I have my 4 inches times 7 inches, what do I get? 28. Not inches, but inches squared. If you think about it, if I'm multiplying 2 lengths like that, chances are I am looking at finding an area of 4 by 7. So if we look at what happened with our count and our name here, where our counts are still 4 and 7, we're multiplying, so we combined them with multiplication to get 28. So we still combine the counts. No matter what operation we're doing, we're going to combine the counts with that operation. The difference comes with the names. We had inches, and we ended up with inches squared or square inches. When we multiply or when we divide, we also combine the names. Now again, that might not seem like a huge deal to you, but that slight difference in the operations defines all the processes we do with all of our other forms of numbers. Fractions, decimals, algebraic numbers, scientific notation. All of those special processes you've learned for those different forms of numbers come from this basic process, or these 2 basic processes right here. In fact, this difference between them actually defines what numbers we can use in each process. For example, let's say I have 3 cows and 5 boys. If I add 3 cows plus 5 boys, do I get 8 cowboys? Doesn't work, right? Or if I do it the other way around, 5 boys plus 3 cows, do I get 8 boy cows? Yes. Anybody near the farm background? A couple? You can tell me that is a bunch of bull, right? Okay, a little ways to go for a joke. But there's a point behind it. When we add numbers, we're going to keep the same name. That implies that we must start with the same name. Here, I could not add 3 cows to 5 boys because I did not start with the same name. If I don't have that same name to start with, I don't know what to keep. When I multiplied, however, I combined the names. It's going to change things. Let's take a look at a little bit more practical example. Like if I have 3 feet plus 5 pounds, what am I going to get? Careful. Plus 3 feet plus 5 pounds would be 3 feet and 5 pounds. Right? On the other side, though, if you're looking at multiplication, you were right. 3 feet times 5 pounds is going to be 15 foot-pounds. You combine the counts. 3 times 5 is 15. Then you also combine the names. Feet times pounds is foot-pounds, which is a unit of torque, or if you're looking at structures, a unit of moment. It can be a unit of work, or pressure is usually pounds per PSI, pounds per inch, but it's part of your power calculation as well. So when we multiplied and when we divide, we didn't need the same names because we're going to combine the names. When we added or subtracted, we had to have the same name because we're going to keep that same name. So when we look at everybody's favorite sort of number, fractions. Yeah, there's a little sarcasm there. I saw a couple of looks out there when I said fractions. Most people will tell you that fractions are one of the things they like the least about math. Little review, the top number is called the numerator. Bottom number, denominator. You may have caught me pause there in the middle of those words a little bit. I am a horrible speller. There's a reason I do math and not English. And I realize my handwriting sometimes leaves a little bit too desired. If anything ever appears up on the board that you can't read, I assure you it was intended to be in English. I probably either just horribly misspelled it or my handwriting is nasty. Don't be afraid to stop me and ask me what something says. I will not be offended, I promise. So let's break down that numerator and denominator. Numerator, every 10 years, our government sends out people to numerate the population during the census. What are they doing? They're counting. Denominator, well, we have different denominations of money or bills, and we have different denominations of organizations. To denominate means to classify or to give a name. So a lot of people look at a fraction and they see 2 numbers. It's not 2 numbers, it's 1 number with 2 parts. Just like having 2 inches or 2 cows. Here we have 2 sevenths. Now, when we talk about fractions in more detail, we'll talk about what is seventh, what a name of seventh is, and what it means. For now, we just need to know that it has those 2 parts. Now, starting in about 3rd or 4th grade, when you started adding fractions, your 3rd grade teacher told you that to add fractions, you must have common denominator. That's not a special rule for fractions. When we add any number, you must have the same name. So then when we go to add them, what do we do with the numerators? Add them. 2 plus 3 is 5. And what do we do with the denominator? Keep the same denominator. Again, that's Not a new process for fractions. Anytime we add numbers, we combine the counts. That would be adding the numerators, and we keep the same name. When we multiply, 2/7 times 3/7. Well, how are we taught to multiply fractions? Multiply straight through. 2 times 3 is 6, and 7 times 7 is 49. Multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators. Again, not a special process for fractions. Anytime we multiply numbers, we combine the counts, and then we also combine the names. Now, what if we have 1/4 plus 3/5? Can I add those the way they're written? No, we can't because they have different names. Again, when we get to fractions in more detail, we'll look at how do you rename those so that you can add them. For multiplication, however, 1/4 times 3/5, do we need the same name to multiply? No, and we don't need a common denominator to multiply. So we can go ahead and just multiply, combining the counts. 1 times 3 is 3, then combining the names. 4 times 5 is 20, so that's 3/20. Decimals. Something like 0.21. Now, what's the formal way of pronouncing that? 21/100ths. Good. You could say 210,000. For you guys, you'd actually probably, since everything is referred to in thousands, you would refer to it as 210 generally. The way it's written there, it is 21/100ths. And when it's written like that, you can see the two parts, the count and the name. So if I were going to add decimals, like 0.21 plus 0.3, is that going to work? What did I do wrong there? You've been taught, that third grade teacher taught us, you have to line up the decimals when you add decimals. You have to have the decimal points. Why? Yeah, the placement matters. This is 21/100ths. This is 3/10ths. They have different names. Now, fortunately, I can just put that 0 there, and now it's 30/100ths. Now they have the same name. Putting that in there, just the decimal point automatically lines up. So lining up the decimal points is nothing more than making sure they have the same name. 21 and 30 make 51. What do we do with the decimal point? Yeah, we bring it straight down. 21/100ths and 30/100ths better give us 51/100ths. Keep the same name. So bringing that decimal point straight down is nothing more than keeping the same name. Now, when we multiply, do I have to line up the decimal point? No, we do not. 21 times 3 is 63. Where does my decimal point go? I have to put a 0 there. Why? Okay, we've been taught, probably that same third grade teacher, right? We've been taught you have to count 1, 2, 3 decimal places in the problem. You have to have 1, 2, 3 decimal places in your answer. So the question is why? Because they said so, right? Well, this is 21/100ths. And this is 3/10ths. When we multiply the counts. 21 times 3 is 63. But we also multiply the names. Hundredths times tenths is thousandths. So when we're counting those decimal places in the problem and putting that many decimal places in the answer, all we're doing is combining the names. Well, let's go on to everybody's favorite kind of number. Even more so than fractions, algebraic numbers. Now, a lot of textbooks have fancy names for these, like algebraic terms and stuff like that. It's just an algebraic number, just like any other number. It has those two parts. It has the count here, the 4, and the name, the x. So just like 4 inches, 4 cows, 4/7, we have 4 of something here. And in this case, it's x's. The difference is we know what inches and and pounds and stuff are. We don't necessarily know what an X is. But it doesn't matter. We'll work with it exactly the same. Like 4x plus 7x is going to give us 11x. Just like with our inches, we combine the counts. 4 plus 7 is 11, and then we keep that same name of x. If we were multiplying 4x times 11x, we get 44x squared. Very good. Just like having, 4 times 11 is 44, and just like inches times inches is inches squared, x times x is x squared. If we have different names, like 5x plus 2y, what do I get? I get 5x and 2y. Just like with the feet and pounds, when I go to add them, I cannot combine them because they have different names. Now, if we were multiplying, you'd be correct. Oops. 5x times 2y, we're going to get 10xy. Because when we multiply, we're going to combine the counts. 5 times 2 is 10. And then we're also going to combine the names. So just like feet times pounds became foot pounds, x times y becomes xy. And this same pattern continues in all of our forms of numbers. Scientific notation will be the same way. When we add or subtract, you must have the same name. When you multiply or divide, you don't need the same name. You're going to combine the names. The difference is the appearance of the number, the form of the number. What part of the number is the name and all that. So as we go through this, hopefully seeing those connections helps you remember things. The nice thing I like about doing things this way is you only have 2 or 3 different rules to remember, and just then you have to apply it to the different forms of numbers. Otherwise, you have thousands of different rules to remember, and you have to remember when to use each one of them. Normally, at this point, I'd be giving you some homework to work on, and you'd finish off the rest of the class period working on homework. Depending on which clock you believe, it's about 8:15 right now. So I'm going to assume you guys have had enough for your first day of math, and we'll let you guys go. Normally, we'll work right up. I'll give you the homework, and I'll expect you to be here right up till 8:20 working on the homework for class. But I'll let you guys out of here for today. We'll see you tomorrow. You bet.